Paintball nerd.
All right, today's guest on Paintball Nerds Fun 5 is an individual who began playing pro in 1995 with Fusion. In 1998, he joined the infamous Image. In 2001, he joined Avalanche. In 2004, he joined the Miami Effect, which eventually became Infamous. He's got 8 pro wins underneath his belt. Ladies and gentlemen, LB. How's it going, bro?
No, it's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah.
So, we've never really got to play professional together, but we did mess around at the ICC, didn't we?
We did indeed, yeah. Team Mirage. I think I still have. I think I gave that jersey away, but yeah, Team Mirage.
Yeah, I still got it. We got last place, which wasn't the best, but it was still one of the greatest times I've had playing paintball.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to bring that up, Isaac, but since you mentioned it, yeah, we, I feel like we did our best, and I had a lot of fun. It was an absolute blast. I wouldn't change anything, and I think that was the goal of putting that squad together. And it was we had all generations of paintball and a bunch of just solid, great guys. So it was good, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've done it all. I mean, you started playing back in 1995, so you've got quite the journey. I mean, just explain to us a little bit about your journey through pro teams when you started in 95 with Fusion.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I started actually playing in 91, 92, amateur wise, and actually on the team called Fusion. And it was a collection of local teams in the greater Detroit area. Really the only guys that are still sort of around today would be Travis, that's coaching Infamous, and then Andy Kopchuk, who does a good job of, showing up at all the, the ICC or the 10-mans, and he's still, solid as ever. So yeah, we did that. We became very, very good, and ultimately turned pro back then. There was just one league. It was 10-man. It was an MPPL 10-man. And there was pro and amateur. There wasn't anything else. It wasn't Division 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so if you qualified to play pro at an event, you could turn pro at that time at that event, but that meant you were pro the remainder of the year. And so we did qualify in Pittsburgh. Our first event, or not our first event that we turned pro was in Pittsburgh in 95. We qualified pro there. And there was some crazy stuff that went down. We ended up winning the event for about 30 minutes. And then there were some crazy accusations that went down with us trying to fix a game with Team Extreme that I will deny to this day, because I had no idea that it was even being talked about. But and so we did that dissolved. We then, Travis, myself, Greg Posey, Andy, created Revolution, and we were Revolution for a little while, and that was tough. We were still playing professional, but we were kind of on a shoestring budget. Had some good local sponsors in Michigan. Dave Massey at Exotic Sports, or Health Survivors. You may know the Michigan Monster Game, so he's responsible for that. So he helped us out a lot, and we ended up winning Chicago 97 professional. But again, like I said, shoestring budget couldn't really sustain it. And so, Travis and I were talking at the time with the All-Americans and Image, and I had some good friends in Lane Wright on Image, and obviously respected the Malashevskis significantly. And Image was just a fun team to watch. We kind of had the mentality that we were going to win or we were going to lose really, really fast. And so Travis and myself went there, had some success. We brought on Posey, who and Andy, who and we got to Image. And so when we were there for about maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years, and we won Chicago and Boston. And after that, Tommy had kind of retired. Trav went to Avalanche. Richmond became involved with Image quite a bit. We kind of were going in a bunch of different directions. And so Trav asked me to join. Chris actually made the phone call, but I had, obviously Trav was in everybody's ears there. And so I joined Avalanche. Had a fabulous time there, man. It was, I don't want to sound like a conceited a-hole, but it was one of the bigger, the first big super team. We had
Absolutely.
tons of cash and tons of sponsors, and Ed Foreman did an incredible job putting together, a band of misfits and rock stars and journeymen that could all do the job well. And it was just a great time. Traveled the globe to do it. JT kicked down a great deal of support along with Warp Sports, and we had vans and sunglass sponsors and clothing sponsors, like stuff like outside the industry that you typically wouldn't see. And it was fun. It's probably one of the funner times I've ever had. But that also dissolved after an incident at World Cup that I'm sure is notorious for everybody, with Jeremy and the whole sniper incident. So we disbanded, and at that time there was another league sort of brewing in the NXL and Super 7 kind of land. So it's the PSP, NPPL, Super 7, and the NXL. We played for a lot of big name sponsors in the industry. And so they were going to have a franchise in this NXL. And so we eventually disbanded and became Miami Effect. Miami Effect was the NXL, where you went and you played, 4 games, or I think it was 4 games, or maybe 6 games. I can't recall, but there was no winner. There was no loser. They didn't really keep. Yeah, they didn't really keep. They didn't really keep like record. It was just like you went there and you played paintball. It was like a big practice more than anything.
It's like the season. It's like you're playing a season.
Yeah. And so while we were doing that, the Super 7 had been launched and was really doing well. And big events like HB, Huntington Beach obviously was one of their marquee events, and it was on the beach, and they did a great job of the layouts and the promotions and sponsors and outside industry. And so we were handcuffed in the NXL, and we just got frustrated and tired of it. And so we made a decision collectively, Chris, Travis, John, myself, Rusty, and we're like, look, we got to go. We got to play in both leagues. Even if we have to lose our NXL spot, we got to play in both leagues. So Gino Posterivo, the owner of National Paintball Supply, gave us the green light. We disbanded Miami Effect. Well, we didn't disband it. We left Miami Effect because the NXL technically owned the franchise name and Miami Effect. And so we went into the NPPL as Infamous. And we had instant success there. The first event we entered, Tampa in 2004, we won. We won the next event in Denver, and it was a blast. And then we also played the X-Ball League, and I guess would have been the PSP at the time. And from there, Infamous was the last team that I played for.
Yeah, man, you've got a lot of good experiences there, man. It's like,
yeah, it was a long career.
And a lot of controversy too. You mentioned there's some controversy with Fusion. Obviously, everyone knows about the Jeremy Somm incident, hiding in the bushes. But a lot of memories there you've got.
Yeah, man. It was I worked in the industry for National and for Key. Oh, actually started at War Game Products, to be honest with you, and then went to National Paintball Supply and then Key Action Sports. So it was nice for me because I had a chance to work in the industry and then play. It was my life. It was everything I did revolved around paintball. From my employment to my fun to my so still to this day, some of my closest friends in the entire world. So it's everything that you could ask for, and I don't. Aside from some controversy, I don't know that I would take anything away.
Yeah. Well, you've built up a lot of great memories, and I'm sure you've traveled the world. I know you've traveled the world doing this.
Yeah.
If you could pick a memory, like if you could pick something that really stands out, what would you say is your most memorable moment in paintball?
Yeah, gosh, it's such a great question, and there's so many. You know what I mean? I think I've said this before in an interview before. Some of the best memories are not necessarily on the field.
Amen.
Some of the best memories are literally traveling all over the planet and with your best mates, and just being a goofball and having all this responsibility, but really no responsibility. You know, I mean, especially when we were younger, we had, guys like Ed Foreman and Tommy Malashevsky that were kind of at the helm of the team. And so we just got to play paintball and act like a fool. Right. But I mean, if I had to pick one, like it would actually be on the field, and it would be a PSP event in Arizona, in Phoenix. I think it was, God, I don't know, maybe 2005. I see someone would have to check it, but we showed up as Infamous, and we showed, this is when you carry 10 guys on a roster, because it was, there's like a minute in between points or 2 minutes in between points. And, you're playing, I think, like 2 20-minute halves. It wasn't a race 2 format. So we get there. I mean, as soon as we get there, I want to say, our coach, Greg Posey at the time, he had a death in the family. He had to leave. And so we were coachless. And then one of our younger kids, Eric Prum, he pulled his hamstring. So then we were down to 9. And then I think, I don't know if JP was on the team or not at that time, but I feel like he was. I mean, he did something to his knee. So then we were down to 8. And then John developed like the worst flu in the world, like couldn't move, couldn't get out of bed. So then we were down to 7 with no coach. And we were playing relatively well, but this is back when, like I said, you were playing 20, 25-minute halves. You didn't have like it is now where, you can run, in my opinion, today and then you Excel or whatever, in X-Ball, you can run with 7 guys, in my opinion, if you've got a couple thoroughbreds that can play every point, especially with the time, with the game in between each point, and also the time in between each point. So we didn't have that luxury back then. And so, we to fast forward in terms of to answer your question, we were playing the Russians in the final game for first and second. And, God bless Chris Losoya, one of my closest friends in the world. He helped coach us. He came into the pits and coached us. And, I think Glenn and I played every single point in that match. And with 7 guys, you kind of had to, right? And I just remember, like, for me, selfishly, like, I felt like I couldn't miss. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like I couldn't, like, I literally could not miss. And, I can remember, like it was yesterday, there was a stand-up can just to the left, and you called the beast or the god today or whatever. And I would shoot the back right corner guy almost every single game, and immediately go to the X and wrap and shoot people and go through. And we ended up winning. And what makes it so sweet is we were tied with like 46 seconds to go. It was like 5-5 or 6-6, right? And we had kind of made up in our mind, with Chris, that we were going to try to win the game. And I think the Russians were going to try and stale, because there was only 45 seconds left to go. I mean, it's right. Big field. There's a giant X in the middle of the field. So, you could do that back then, right? But we were like, we can't let this go to overtime, And so 3, 2, 1, go. Again, I shot the back right corner guy, immediately went to the X, wrapped, shot the back center guy, went through and shot Dave Baines. And Glenn was right behind me and following up, and there was a center flag at the time. It wasn't buttons, and so Glenn grabbed the flag, hung with like 4 seconds to go, and that was it, man. It was just such a good story because all the adversity that we were faced with. We didn't have a full roster. We didn't have a coach. We had guys that were in our corner that, like, Chris is a great example that, we had played with, and, it stepped up to help. And we're really, it was like Rocky IV, man. Yeah. It was like the Italian Stallion versus Drago. And that's really, I hate to use that analogy, but it kind of was. I mean, the Russians were a dynamic team, definitely solid as they could be, and I don't think anybody really expected us to do as well as we did, especially with such a hamstring roster. And, it was that. So that's probably a long-winded answer, but it's probably my best memory in the game, should I say, aside from all the other stuff that we talked about.
That got my heart pumping. Like, there's always
Yeah.
those stories that I could tell it did for you too. Like, you're telling it and you're just like reliving that moment. And
Yeah, no, I
that's
got
one of
the
the things that,
chills. I got the chills talking about it. It's like
yeah, dude.
that's a long time ago, but still to this day, I mean, I can literally see it. I can see every point in my mind, and how it was going for us, and how we, what we were up against, and how everybody stepped up. You know what I mean? I know like Trav played a lot in the back center, and we just everything was dialed, just because we had to. We didn't have the luxury of somebody else to come in and step up.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You talked about Chris Lasoya coming in and coaching, and I know that you played with him as well. I mean,
Hmm.
you've played with the best in the game, man, because you are
Yeah,
one of them.
yeah.
But who's your favorite? Like, who is who would you say is your favorite person to play with? And if you haven't played with them, who is your favorite player to
Yeah,
watch?
gosh, man, that's such a tough question to answer.
Okay, you don't have to pick one. I'm not going to
Yeah,
make you pick
and I
one,
know,
but
that I'm going to get. I hope I can swear on this. I know I'm going to get shit for it, but I think playing with Chris is always amazing. I mean, because you never knew what you were going to get. You know what I mean? I mean, Chris would
yeah,
be there in the end. Chris would break the game open. Chris would, not have the best game of his life. He'd probably be up there at the top. John Richardson, is right there. John, I kind of playing with John is kind of, you don't ever know what John's. If you're an opponent playing against John, I don't think you ever really know what he's going to do or what he's thinking. But I kind of always felt that I knew, like, I could look at John and see mannerisms and see the way that he was like sitting in a spot or not in a spot, sitting in the open. Mentally, I think John was very, very, John is a very bright person, but John was very gifted at seeing things that people didn't see. It's a lot like Oliver in that capacity, where he's looking at stuff more of like blocking stuff out than actually being in a nice, comfy bunker that, can protect you and not get shot out of. So, Rusty would be another one. I mean, I love playing behind Rusty because him and I, I felt like we didn't get the shaft, but it would always be like, especially on Avalanche, it'd be like, okay, LB, you and Rusty kind of go over here and just don't die, and then like 7 of us are going to go over here, and so we, a lot of times we'd hold it down and ultimately meet the guys on the other side. But those 3 guys, Travis, I mean, there's so many, I mean, so to pick one would be very, very tough because they all bring different, attributes and different skill sets and different excitement to the game. That I didn't give you one. I think I gave you 4, but it's just tough to give you one, brother.
I'll take it. I'll take
Yeah,
it for sure.
yeah.
So everyone's got this item in paintball. For
Mm-hmm.
me, it's this bandana I tie around my ankle.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard guys say headbands.
Yeah,
Some of them it's like a tool. But
yeah.
for you, what is your one piece of equipment or gear that you can't go to a tournament without?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to probably be similar to some of the. I've seen some other answers in this. For me, I had a Sandana headband that like an original Sandana headband that in a head wrap, and then a headband that I stole from Mitchie Malashevsky years and years and years ago, and then I had the head wrap that back it was just Sandana. I had head wraps all the time, paintball stores. That I don't know. It's like it is what it is. To your point, it's your item that makes you feel invincible. It's your item that makes you feel like you're capable of accomplishing anything out there. And for me, no matter what, even if it was raining or if it was freezing, I would always have that on underneath a hat or underneath a knit beanie or whatever. I always would have. I always, and still to this day, when you and I played in the ICC, and I played the Pittsburgh event this past August. They don't go anywhere without me. If I'm going to play paintball, there's a good chance. There's not a good chance I'll have it on.
Yeah, man, it's really interesting because it's not like no one ever says, "Oh, it's my gun." It's
Yeah,
this hopper that feeds really reliable. It's always like this
yeah,
evanescent thing that will deteriorate someday, and it's like
Yep.
it's just
Oh,
this item that,
yeah,
that
dude.
doesn't
I
really
mean,
make sense, you know?
yeah, I don't have my gear bag in this my office, but gosh, I mean, it's beat to hell, man. I mean, it is ripped. Like I've sewn it. Like I've like, you know what I mean, and it's absolutely beat to hell, and it's super super delicate. Yeah, it's funny because my son went and played with his buddies. They had a little birthday party, and you know, I outfitted him with everything, right? I mean, it had like, you know, pants, and like Trav, and you know, Trav made me a small jersey for him, and so I gave it to him, and I was like, listen, because I was out of town, I was like, listen, I don't care if you don't bring anything back. These two items have to come back with you. You just can't, you cannot not bring these back. And, you know, and so he was like, oh, like, you know, he was so mesmerized by like, why is this? Like, you know, he's got, you know, $1,500 gun and a $200
Yeah.
tank and a $200 loader and, you know, a pair of push goggles, or, you know, and that are custom with an infamous strap and, you know, chrome lenses. And I gave all the stuff that I gave him. Like, you have to bring these two things back. If you don't bring these two things back, I'm like, don't come back. You know what I mean?
This cloth is very important to me.
Exactly, right. He's like, but what about this gun? And I'm like, that those can be replaced. You know what I mean? So
That's
yeah,
what it is, dude. The
yep,
headbands and stuff like that, they've got so much like they're battle worn, right? They've been
yeah,
with us through all these things,
yep,
and that's why they're so special. They can't be replaced. Guns can, hoppers can, goggles can,
yeah.
but things like that that have like some nostalgia to them,
I mean,
some
that's it too. I
meaningful.
mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's nostalgia, there's mojo, there's, you know, whatever you want to, whatever you need to call it. You know, it's like I don't know, the movie 300 with the gladiators. Like in the end, when, you know, he's leaving, I think his wife says, you know, like, come back with your shield or don't come back at all. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it's like it's one of those things where I mean, everybody's got them. You know, every player that plays the game at the level that we did has something. You know, I mean, there was, you know, sure, there, like, you know, we were all fortunate to get a bunch of gear throughout the years. You know, I can tell you certain guns that I liked better than others. You know what I mean?
for
But
sure.
for the most part, you know, whatever model gun you're using that year, you got techs that can make it as best as it can be, and aftermarket parts and accessories to make it dialed in. But, you know, I don't want to sound like arrogant. Like those can be replaced. You know, I mean, I
Yeah,
like there's just certain things that can't.
yeah. So LB, you talk to someone like Alex or Oliver, who uh, most people today consider them legends.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Yeah,
ask them who you know who's your legend, you're
yeah.
going to be on the list, man. So I mean, you've got I mean, throughout your career, you've done a lot. What would you say you're most thankful for in your paintball career?
Yeah, I mean that one's easy to me. You know, I think it's friendships. You know, I played sports all through, you know, high school, baseball, basketball, and football. And I really got into paintball when I was in, like, I started playing when I was like in seventh grade. You know what I mean? But I really got into it where I knew it was something that I wanted to do around 10th grade. And I still, you know, have friends that I went to high school with and in college, but, you know, my closest friendships are guys that, you know, I played paintball with and against. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I talk to Oliver probably a couple times a week still, and, you know, I talk to Ryan a lot, and, you know, and obviously, you know, I was back in Michigan a couple weeks ago and had dinner with Travis and Camille and his girls, and I talked to JR at least a couple times a week. Talk to Chris, you know, once a week, a couple times a week. So Rusty lives here in Arizona now, and, you know, and so it's the friendships that you build. I've gotten to know a ton of people over the years that, you know, paintball is such a unique community in that, you know, you don't, it's hard, it's easy to describe the game of paintball, right? But
Hmm.
the culture of paintball is difficult for folks to understand, and because
Yes.
they just don't like get it. You know what I mean? Like what it takes to be in it, the sacrifices that you make, and what it takes in order to be successful. What, you know, what you give up in your personal life, and what, you know, like, you know, most of the time, you know, weekends are meant for, you know, fun and relaxation. This is not the case in our world, right? So it would be friendships, you know. I mean, that's those will stand the testament of time, you know.
100%, man. And you mentioned a lot of people don't understand what it takes, you know, to get to
Yeah,
that level. So there's guys watching this right now. There's kids, there's adults, you know, there's girls and guys watching this that want some advice on how to get to that level, how to reach the top in paintball. So what would you
yeah.
say?
It's got to consume you. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, like it's got to consume you, and it's got to be, if you want to play at the highest level. You know what I mean? You can play paintball recreationally, you can play paintball divisionally, you can play paintball for fun. But if you want to play at the highest level, it's got to consume you. It's got to be an absolute, like, an addiction, right? You know,
Yeah.
something that it's all you think about. It's what you want to do. And it's not just, you know, I think now more than ever, it's not just going out there and playing tournaments, right? There's so much that goes in behind the curtain, especially now. Like, I'm so impressed by players today, whether it's nutrition or whether it's, trying to get better at fitness, or, I mean, there's film study now that teams are doing, recording, games and watching film just like they would in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
There's teams have staff now to help with, and people have a certain role on how to, make it better for the players so that they can focus on truly, perfecting their craft and playing at a very, very high level. So, that would be it. I mean, it absolutely has to consume you. And that's when, I feel like, you have the ability to sharpen the blade. It's just like anything else. I mean, you can't half-ass it. You know what I mean? You can't phone it in. If you phone it in, you get your head blown off.
Yeah.
No one wants to get their head blown off, right? So it's got to consume you, and the minute it doesn't, then it's time, and that's okay too, right? But if you want to play at a high level, it's got to be a lot, if not all of your energy and effort, and mental health and capacity has got to go into it. It's just, especially today, the game's evolved so much that I feel like players doing a really good job of that, and that's why you see success out there, and the same players, being successful year after year, right?
Absolutely, man. It's true.
Yeah.
Gotta grind. You gotta want it.
Yeah, and it's
You
just,
gotta
again,
love it.
it's like, trust me, there's a lot of times when I didn't, like, I lived in Chicago, where most of the guys, when we were with Infamous, and lived in San Diego, right? And like, so I didn't, like, the last thing that I wanted to do Friday, like after work, was like, I wanted to go back into the city of Chicago and hang out with my buddies and jam beers, right? But I mean, there was like for the most part, when we were in the season, every Friday afternoon, like I'd go to the airport, jump on a plane, go to San Diego, practice all day Saturday and Sunday, and come back on a red eye and go back into work, right? So that it's a lot more than just playing, in front of a crowd.
Yeah, man. And you gotta love it, because the amount of effort that this all takes that you're talking about, if you don't love it, you just simply won't put in that effort to do it.
No, and it'll show too. You know what I mean? If you don't love it, I mean, it'll expose you real quick.
Yeah.
And again, paintball is fun, right? We all started playing paintball because it's super, super fun, right? And then you make a choice, whether you want to play paintball a couple times a month at the local field, you want to go to a big game, you want to go, to a 10-man. I mean, but if you want to play, at the most competitive, highest level, then you got to treat it as such, right? Because if you don't, you'll get chewed up.
There it is. LB, dude, thank you so much for your time, man. We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
buddy. Yeah, my pleasure, brother.
Anything you want to part with for the paintball community?
Oh gosh, no, man. I mean, just, I would say, it's super fun. I mean, I still, log in every event, watch games, and looking forward to World Cup, and want to wish everybody, a good event. Infamous in particular, but yeah, all the guys. I hope everybody has a good event, and it's competitive, and we continue to to grow the sport more than anything, because it's a great game, changed my life, and means the world to me still to this day. And it's a good like life lesson, and is it's different than every other traditional ball sport, right?
Yeah. Right on, dude. Thanks, LB.
Yeah, you bet, brother. Anytime.
Later, man.